Hi there, welcome to my latest edition of my 10-minute moan, and the topic of today's moan is the cutting and slashing of the free places that the SNP always wax lyrical about at universities in Scotland. Now, what happened here? Shona Robison, in her budget, which was December, didn't tell us this in the Scottish Parliament, but it was hidden away in the documents which form part of the budget. And in the spreadsheets, it became apparent by those who have had a dig at them that at least 1,200 free places in Scottish universities will be removed. At least, potentially 3,800. And what I'm going to do is go to cover this story a wee bit, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about why did they do it. So anyway, it turns out that they're reducing the funding to universities for free places by £28.5 million in the budget from December, which she's got to tell us when she was standing giving us other bad news like increasing taxes again. Why? I can imagine why. Quite a horrific story when this is one of the things that they take to the pulpit regularly to tell everybody how fantastic the SNP are because of these free tuition fees for Scots going to university. So to get up on budget day and tell us how taxes are going up and places were coming down would be a bit hard to swallow, but it's there nonetheless, this £28.5 million reduction in university funding. Now, this is despite in June 23, 6-7 months ago, Humza Yousaf grandstanding saying he was absolutely committed to the free university places, June 23. By December 23, it was part of a budget to take away £28.5 million worth of funding. Now, in December, Ms Robinson, she's the lady who delivered the budget, said we were protecting free tuition and driving forward a commitment to widen access. This was early December. Miss Robinson said that, which is obviously goes along nicely with a nice cuddly thing that Humza was saying in the June, that they were absolutely committed to free university places. Now, these free university places are often used to justify higher taxes in Scotland. I think they might actually suggested that after the budget when their MPs and MSPs were out trying to put some positive spin on it. You can always see Nats and cyber Nats and the cult members, especially in social media, justifying how poor Scotland is by saying, but we get free tuition. It's always used as an excuse. If you ask any nationalist separatist to list the benefits of the SNP since they took power back in 2007, this free tuition will always be there, with the fallacy of the free prescriptions, which is costing the health service an absolute fortune for to subsidise people who are can actually afford prescriptions when they were always free for those who couldn't. And tuition places are the same. There's always been free tuition places available, but now they've decided to hang their washing out on it. And they'll always use it just to justify the rest of the deficiencies and inefficiencies of the SNP as a governing body, and why we pay higher taxes in Scotland. Now, as I say, it was hidden in the budget documents that weren't included in the budget speech, and it does say that savings to be made reducing first-year places. So obviously anyone who's in university on free placements just now, that will be hurt, but those who are trying to get into university this year will be the ones who are disadvantaged by this. And Robinson admitted as well, this is a cracker, that COVID payments from Westminster had covered these places for the last 2 years. These people in Westminster that are the devil incarnate, these people, she's admitted that for the last 2 years, Westminster have funded these free places that the SNP go out and tell everybody how wonderful they are. And because the COVID payments have stopped, there's between 1,200 and 3,800 places. I'll not be free this year, they'll be gone. And you don't have the option in Scotland of, if you can afford to paying the rest of the tuition in Scottish universities is taken up by foreign students who all pay. Unless obviously they're getting grants from within their own country, but they don't get funded from Scotland. But if there's somebody who could afford to go to university, if these places are taken away, they can't just suddenly turn up the door and say, "Can I give you a few £1,000s?" Now, obviously, there's been some kickback on this news by the opposition parties at Holyrood, and Labour's Michael Mora, he's the one that suggests that 1,200 places is a minimum, and it would only save between £4 and £5 million, where the true figure could be over and closer to £4,000 because they need to cut 28.5 million. Now, those figures don't stack up either, because if he's saying it costs £45 million for the 1,200 places, then we need to save, what would that be, for at least 6 times that. So I even think the estimate of 3,800 places might be low, because that doesn't make sense to me. But however, I think it does make one valid point that 1,200 places will be nowhere near covering this £28.5 million funding deficit from the Scottish Government to the universities. So if the true figures are going to be 4,000, possibly more, what does that look like? What sort of effect does that have on students wanting to go to university? Well, last year there was just over 30,050 new students offered places in Scottish students offered places in Scottish universities. Now that is offers. I'm not sure. I can't get the figure of actual Scottish students in universities, because some of them might have been offered places in more than one university, and you might be shown in those figures twice. But if we use that as a maximum, 30,000 places, and there's potentially 12 to 400 to maybe 4,000 over, we could be looking at 10% of a cut in the amount of students that go through university doors from Scotland. But this government, who you could put the kettle on, mention free tuition fees every time they're putting it. You could ask them about the bins not getting emptied. How come my bins aren't getting emptied? And in the sentence of the waffle of trying to justify why your bins aren't getting emptied, they'll mention free prescriptions and free tuition, because it's what they do. But you could be losing 10%, maybe even more, if this Michael Morris figures on the right, who can take up the opportunity. Now, it's just another one of these mad things that nationalists use to justify the existence of the Scottish National Party. Now, in the old system, before the SNP decided to try and use it for PR spin, there was bursaries available for people who were bright enough and wanted the desire to go to university if they couldn't afford to go to university. Bursaries have always been an available route into university. So again, exact same as the prescriptions, the free prescriptions, which were always actually available for those who couldn't afford them. These tuition fees are another thing that actually didn't benefit poor people or people in challenging circumstances at all. They benefited people who could well afford them in the first place, because they suddenly got them free when they didn't maybe need them, and it just puts more strains on all the other things in the economy that the Scottish National Party have ruined. Things like normal education for school wages, roads, transport, infrastructure, even our energy services, which have been pawned off to international owned companies, and some of them actually some countries' national energy companies owned by other governments. They now own all our wind. So it's just more bollocks by the bollocks party that the free tuition, and it's just saying I was going to discuss the alternative here. The alternative was what we had in place already, because if you can imagine if we had the old system where those who needed funding got it and those who could afford paid for it, would there be more Scottish people in universities? I actually think so, because we could charge people who could afford to pay tuition fees, And that would leave more money in the pot to encourage more people in who couldn't afford to. Or if there was a surplus of that, then you've got less strain on things, really important things like health service and infrastructure and transport and roads and all these other things. So you're absolutely bonkers doing it again. A couple of things crying out from this information that's became public. Your cries for being transparent, total bollocks. You try to hide this. If you were totally transparent, you'd have stood up and said at the budget, we're having to cut this. It was there, you knew about it, you discussed it and agreed it before you got up on the pedestal to present the budget, because it's in the paperwork that goes along with the budget. So you're at it. And it just goes to prove again, this Westminster's terrible. Westminster have been paying and covering this cost for 2 years. So now that Westminster's not got the COVID money, because the COVID money's not a thing anymore, but you'll go up and tell everybody how bad Westminster is. And just this fallacy that free things are actually helpful to society, when the two headlining free things, prescriptions and tuition fees, were always available free for those who really needed them. So, there we go, more nonsense, more bollocks, and where would we be if we hadn't given free tuition fees? I believe we'd be in a better place with more Scottish kids being at university and those who couldn't afford to pay still going. However, there we go. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. There'll be one of these corners, there'll be some recommendations to watch. But the most important thing of all, have a great day. Bye now.